I want to talk to you about a story that I read once from a book called I Will Die Free. It's talking about a man named Noble Alexander, and he actually was arrested and accused of trying to assassinate Fidel Castro in the early 60s. And he hadn't gotten out. His wife was pregnant. They were waiting for them to have their child so that they could go to the United States. But before he left, he was caught by the police. He was arrested and put in jail. And they told him that they had no chance that he was going to ever leave the prison, that he would die before he would leave. In 22 years of severe abuse, Noble Alexander stood for his faith. And one of the things that he did is he stood up for the Sabbath. And one Sabbath, he refused to do the work. And so he was thrown into a cesspool of all the human waste from the prison. And every time that he would attempt to come out of the cesspool, the soldier would actually put his foot on a noble's head and just shove him deep and completely under the cesspool. So he kept doing this in the hot burning sun of the Sabbath. And the last time that he came up and he was looking out and he was just crying inside saying, "God, why? How much of this can I endure?" Having human waste up to his neck, as he looked up, he started to see that there was one plant, there was like one plant growing in this cesspool of human waste. And he looked at it and there was this tiny little white flower. And he says that as long as he looked at that flower, that he was reminded of God's providence, that even in the midst of the muck and the mire, that God would provide something to let him know, to remind him that he was going to be okay. And so I think about this story, and it reminds me of the fact that we live in a world full of muck and mire. And sometimes we get up to here with it. Sometimes I think that we get submerged underneath the muck and the mire. But I believe that Jesus is that little white flower for each one of us. I have a verse in Hebrews 12, verse 12. It says, "Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God." So again, when I feel like the muck and mire is coming up higher and higher, I look to Jesus. I think about that little white flower that kept Noble Alexander from losing and falling completely into despair. And I hope that encourages you today. Stay faithful.